Hello, welcome to Tuesday, September 8th to 2020's presentation of daily slides for Pre-AP English 1. I just want to go through our agenda. You should have, of course, gone to Google Classroom every day and click on the link and it would bring you here. And then you would just scroll down to the correct day for the daily lessons. All right, so the first thing you should do is go do your warm-up on the Google form. Then, of course, click on these slides, and you can watch the video presentation, which I'm doing right now. We'll post later. Or you can just click through the slides. I highly encourage you to watch the video presentation, as I do go through some extra things and give you some special directions on what to make sure you pay attention to. One of the big things that you will be doing with this text is annotation. I asked you Friday after your test, to read The Seventh Man and do your annotations. So be sure you are following the proper annotations listed in the slides. The one that we really are focusing on is the questioning annotation. So as you read, you should be taking notes and writing down to the margins, or with remote learners, you'll be putting your questions in the text box. And as we're discussing it or you're going through it, some of those questions may be answered, but it shows how you are thinking through the text. We're going to learn about frame stories today, characterization, and how to properly use a comma. Again, this is an important statement here. What I'll be looking for in today's reading is that you are making your own annotations, so you can highlight the text and take your own notes and writing down your questions in the annotation box. But also in the slides, at times, there's moments where you're asked to look at certain paragraphs or certain pages, and it asks some questions, and you're expected to go and annotate those in the text. So please make sure you're doing that as well. All right, and just real quick before we get started, if you want to when you want to annotate a specific passage, all you have to do is highlight it. As you can see, it's highlighted green, but let's say that's not one of your options. So when you let go, you can see you have your choices. You can highlight it yellow, pink, green, or blue. You can change it from highlighting to a circle or to underlining. And again, you will just select what color you want. And then in the box, you're going to type your annotation. So this is where you would type your questions. Highlight the passage selection that you were that you have a question about, and then type your question here. Okay. So that's how you do it in Savas. So let's go back to our PowerPoint. And like I said, you should go and do your warm-up. What is the difference between linear and nonlinear plots? So this is just a little review from last week. See if you can remember that and do your answers, and make sure to name a movie or book that follows a linear plot, and a movie or a book that follows a nonlinear plot. Think about things that maybe you read in junior high, short stories, books, novels of any kind of sort. So pause the video right now and go ahead and do your warm-up. Okay, so what is the difference between linear and nonlinear plots? So with Through the Tunnel, we read a story that was linear. So as we know, linear plots tell a story in chronological order as they occurred in time. So we were in the current present time, and it was told in chronological order. Nonlinear plot is kind of a breakup of a story. It does not tell a story in chronological order. It will use elements of flashbacks to scenes in the past, foreshadowing of future events, have subplots, and different things to break up the continuum of a story. So nonlinear plot does not happen in order. So can you think of any movies or books that you've read? Be sure to include them in your warm-up. All right, so this was the annotation for the face-to-face remote learners. You have to circle unfamiliar words, or a word if you know all the words, then you need to circle any powerful words that have an effect on the reader. Put a line under important ideas, put a pink line, and then question marks. Next to ideas that challenge your comprehension or raise questions like, why is this happening? Who is it? Why is his name? Why is he called the seventh man? Make sure you are all putting those questions in your annotation. So one of the element that we're going to be looking at with nonlinear plot is frame story. Okay, so the seventh man is told in a frame story. And what that is a story within a story. So you have the main story, but then there's another story inside it. So typically frame occurs at the beginning and the end of the story. So that's our main story that gets us started. And then the interior is going to shift to a different narrative or point of view. So our outer frame will be the present time typically, and the interior is told to the participants in the outer story, but it's set in the past and therefore would be told through flashbacks. All right, I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, The Princess Bride, but it is a frame story, perfect example of frame story. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. So the main frame is at the beginning of the story. We have this young boy who's homesick from school, and his grandfather's come to look after him while his parents are at work. And he's visiting him, and while he's sick, he's reading him the story. So that is our main frame of the story. But then what happens is, as the story is being told to the characters in the main frame, the outer frame, the interior story is a completely different story. It's a story of a girl named Buttercup and the man she loves, Wesley, and him trying to rescue her and them being together and all the odds that are against them. Again, this is a story that takes place elsewhere. And there's Buttercup and Wesley. And it's also a book if you are interested in reading it. All right, so pause this video and go ahead and make sure you click on this video and watch. It tells us some more about frame stories in movies and gives us some other examples of frame stories and stories, but it takes us through The Princess Bride. Okay, so I hope you learned some information from that video and better understand how frame stories are. So as you read, I want you to notice and note something. What part of the story is the frame? Okay, and what shifts do you notice between the frame and the interior story? And we'll kind of review that when we come back to on Wednesday. Before we begin the daily lesson, we'll kind of review some of this notice and note. I want you to, again, whenever you see like a notice and note as you read, take notes in your book, or sorry, not your book, in your online book, and that's where you can annotate it. So where you see it, the main frame, you can take a note that says this is the main frame, and wherever you see the shift, you can take notes there as well. All right, characterization is something else we are going to be looking through when we read this text. It's pretty easy. Authors will help us make believable characters through either direct or indirect characterization. And typically in the story, you're going to have a mix of both. Direct characterization, the author directly states the character's traits. So those are telling sentences. They tell us exactly what he looks like, where maybe what kind of person they are. It can be anything, but it's told to us directly. It's nothing that we have to figure out. Indirect are more showing sentences. This is where the author describes what the character looks like. Doesn't directly say he has or she has brown hair. It will say a babbling brook of water. I don't know. I can't think off the top of my head right now. But it would be describing it that her hair was long and rippling like a brook down a long stream. So to describe that her hair was very long without telling us it was actually very long hair. Not only do we learn about the character looks and how they feel, but we can also find out about a character's way they interact with other people and how other people respond to them as well. And you have to use these clues to draw your conclusion about the personality of the characters in the story. So as you read, here's again where I want you to take notes in your online text and your annotation. As we read, look for details that describe the appearance and actions of Kay in paragraph 10. So you can note those as direct or indirect. And taken together, what do these details suggest about Kay's character? So answer that question in your annotations. And what do you learn from the narrator's character from this paragraph? So make sure we're highlighting and noting that information while on paragraph 10. And what does his relationship with Kay say about him, referring to the seventh man? As we come along, you'll also get let's see, I think it's on page or paragraph around paragraph 24 and paragraph 25. No, these are all in paragraph 24. You're going to come across these words breakwater and flotsam. So breakwaters, this probably looks very familiar to you. It's a barrier that helps protect the land from waves. These can be breached, especially during a powerful storm like a typhoon. And if you don't know what a typhoon is, it's very much just like a hurricane. It just happens more in the regions towards Asia. I'll be showing you some videos later this week of that, but you can always research and Google it, and even go to YouTube and type in what is a typhoon and see some images of that. They generate damaging winds and waves just like we experience with hurricanes. So as you can see, here's the breakwater right here as well. Flotsam, that's debris from a wreckage or cargoes of ships. Sometimes you'll see that wash up on shore. You'll also see like with during like hurricanes and typhoons, when the tide gets pulled back. I remember they were showing us in the news one time the beach in Galveston when the tide was pulled out from the storm, and like you could walk out forever. It seemed like, and it was just all sand because the water was being sucked out of the bay, and you could see all kind of stuff that was left behind on the beach, what's under the water. It's pretty kind of scary sometimes what you see is in the water. But of course that water comes back in when the storm reaches that place. All right, something to look at. We need to look and pay attention to the use of commas. So writers use commas in many ways before a coordinating conjunction to separate independent clauses. And an independent clause is just a sentence that has a subject verb and can stand on its own. Think about independent. It stands by itself, so it expresses a complete thought. Between items in a series, which of course is the easiest way that you guys are really great at doing commas. Between a coordinated adjectives, which is more challenging to find, and after introductory elements of a sentence, before and after non-essential phrases and clauses. Commas signify a slight pause and help readers understand how the words in the sentence work together. So let's go to paragraph 2, and how are the commas used here? So if we go back to Savas and go to our story, and let's pay attention to how commas are being used here. So look at the sentence. In a small group that huddled in the circle around could hear the wind tearing through the darkness outside, heading west. It shook the trees, set the windows to rattling, and moved past the house with one final whistle. So pause the video and think about it. What is the use of these commas? How are these commas being used? Okay, these commas are being used to separate a list. The wind did several things. It shook the trees, it set the windows to rattling, and moved past the house with one final whistle. So that's using commas to list things. Let's look at sentence number 5. It just barely missed me, but in my place it swallowed everything that mattered most to me and swept it off into another world. If you know what the word but is, what part of speech it is known as a coordinating conjunction. If you ever heard the word coordinate, think about like when you coordinate your outfit, you're putting at least two things together to make one. So a coordinating conjunction does the same thing. We're taking two sentences and putting them together to make one. So whenever you have a complete sentence before the coordinating conjunction, let's highlight that yellow, and you have a comma, but I'm going to circle that. Okay, we'll make that green. That's a coordinating conjunction. In my place, it swallowed everything is important to me, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, and that's a complete sentence as well. So this is called a compound sentence. And so whenever you have a compound sentence with a coordinating conjunction that's joining two sentences together, you need to use a comma before it. Now, I've seen lots of you in your short answer writings write compound sentences where you're great, but you are failing to remember to put this comma here. So please start remembering and using your commas properly. Okay. So again, we went to the last sentence in paragraph 2, and how were the commas being used there? We noticed that they were being used in items in a series. So as you read, I want you to pay attention to other commas. How are commas used in the first sentence of paragraph 5? Go back and do that on your own and make an annotated note. And also on that third sentence in paragraph 6, and make your note and see how they use commas in those paragraphs. And lastly, I want you to write a sentence that correctly uses a comma. You can put that in your annotation. You can just type in exit ticket at the end of paragraph 5, and then write a sentence using a comma properly. And that will be all for our lesson today. Again, if you have any questions, need any help, please email me. Let me know. I am working on grading papers. It's been quite overwhelming trying to get everything straight. So I apologize for not being caught up with all that, but I have been entering some grades this weekend, and I will continue tomorrow or Tuesday and Wednesday, and hopefully I can get that all caught up, and I'll let you know when I'm all done with the grades. If you submit grades late, remember you will not receive full credit. And remember, you are only allowed for pre-AP to turn in assignments of 1 day late. I may be a little bit gracious right now in the beginning, but after I get all caught up with grades and we're all kind of really settled and familiar with this, I will have to no longer give you credit for late assignments if they're beyond 1 day late. So please make sure you're keeping up with assignments. If you have any problems, please let me know. People have let me know, and I've helped them out one-on-one. But please make sure you're on top of your work and being responsible. So just let me know if you need anything. Have a great day.